My name is Kevin, and today I'm going to talk to you about the science of yeast infections. The reason why I have authority to talk about this is because I'm one of the co-founders of NeuEve. We are a women's health company and founded by my mom, who's a gynecologist. She's been delivering babies since she was 19 years old. We've been able to help thousands of women resolve their yeast infections that are chronic, recurrent. We've been able to help women that no one else has been able to help. So today I'm going to talk to you about what we do and what happens with yeast infections. First, we're going to talk about what a healthy vagina looks like. Second, we're going to talk about what happens in the vaginal microbiome when yeast takes over. And then finally, we're going to talk about the various treatment options that we have. Here's the first thing I know about a healthy vagina. This is a vaginal canal. And in the vaginal canal, in the healthy state, we have lots of Lactobacilli that are living in there. And the thing you gotta understand about Lactobacilli is Lactobacilli produce this thing called lactic acid, okay? They produce lactic acid, which basically changes the pH. It makes it very acidic. And when you have a lot of Lactobacilli, they're all making this acid, making it very acidic. It keeps out all forms of bad bacteria. It keeps out yeast, keeps out everything. It even can prevent various forms of STDs, herpes, that kind of thing. The way it works is you have very high Lactobacilli leads to very high acidity, and high acidity leads to two things. It leads to low yeast, low bad bacteria, and low other things. It helps against other STDs too, but yeah, we'll put that there. Okay, and then high acidity makes Lactobacilli very happy. So high Lactobacilli leads to high acidity, which leads to high Lactobacilli, which leads to acidity. That's what people mean when they say that your vaginal microbiome is in a good balance. This is happening. That's how a healthy vagina works. So what happens, what causes yeast infections? How does that happen? Well, it could be a number of different things that can lead to yeast infection. It could be things like antibiotics. It could be your period. It could be different sexual behaviors. There's a lot of things that can cause a disruption to this Lactobacilli. It could be douching. So what happens when this Lactobacilli acidity loop gets destroyed is this. So if we lose a lot of this Lactobacilli, then there's a lot more empty space. There's a lot less acidity being made, and so there's more empty space for other things to get in there. And one of the things that, it could be yeast, it could be other things, but one of the things that could get in there is yeast. So if Lactobacilli becomes low, that means that acidity becomes low, which allows for things like yeast to become high. Once the yeast becomes high, then yeast is going to keep growing. It's going to start to take over the whole vagina, right? Because yeast is much more aggressive than a lot of other things. That's why you experience the symptoms of yeast infection, such as like massive itching, pain. It's just really miserable. So that's what happens with yeast infections. What are the options for treatment? There are three options for treating yeast infections. Option one is antifungals. Option two, douching or boric acid. And then option three is NeuEve. How do antifungals work? Antifungals work like this. Let's talk about antifungals. How do antifungals work? Well, antifungals work by killing funguses. They kill all funguses. Here's how I want you to think about what an antifungal does, right? It kills fungus, it leaves other cells alone, right? So in order for something to do that, here's the analogy I want you to think about, okay? Let's say you're like a cartoon supervillain, and your goal is to kill every human being in America, right? And you have a killer robot that you can use to do that, right? Here's your killer robot, and you give your killer robot commands, right? You might tell it, so you're like a cartoon supervillain who hates people. You love all the animals except for people, right? You love cats, dogs, birds, right? And you have a killer robot that can go around killing anything, but first you have to give it instructions, right? So if you were telling your killer robot that you want to kill all the funguses but leave all your non-fungus alone, or if you want to kill all humans and leave all the non-human animals alone, what kind of instructions would you give to your robot? Well, you might tell it, kill everything that has hair. But the thing is, things that have hair also include cats and dogs, right? So you gotta ignore the cats and dogs. You're gonna say, well, kill everything that also has 2 legs and 2 arms, right? 2 legs and 2 arms. You know, humans all have 2 legs and 2 arms. Tell your robot to kill everything that has hair and has 2 legs and 2 arms. What you're gonna find is that your killer robot is gonna walk around killing everybody, but almost everybody, right? Who's your robot gonna miss? This robot will miss any human being that has 1 arm, or any human being that has 1 leg, or if there's any humans out there that have 3 legs or 3 arms. So after this robot finishes wiping out everyone in America, it's gonna leave like 0.01% of people alive. 0.1% of people that have either 1 arm, 1 leg, 3 legs, or 3 arms, because all the 2 leg, 2 arm, and also anyone who's like bald too. It'll also miss all the bald people, right? Or hairless, bald/hairless people, right? If that was your only robot, then eventually you're gonna have a lot of emptiness, and then what's gonna come back is, you know, all the 1 arm, 1-legged, bald, hairless people will survive, and then they'll create a new civilization that this robot can't do anything about, right? So the issue with antifungal treatment is that if you've had a yeast infection once and you use that one antifungal, it'll kill a lot of that fungus, but then some of it survives, right? Some of it survives and is now resistance. This is what they mean by resistance to this antifungal thing, right? Like when you have a bunch of 1 arm, 1 leg, 3 leg, 3 arm people, your 2 leg, 2 arm killing robot can't kill them anymore. Same with your anti-yeast fungus. Each time you use it, you know, your antifungals are sold in drugstores everywhere. They only have most of the time they only have 1 active ingredient, right? They're just a single style of fungus killer, and each time a fungus survives, it's gonna become more and more resistant against that particular antifungal. So that's why a lot of times after you finish using the drugstore antifungal treatment, like yeast will come back after a while, after a few weeks, after a few months, which just always seems to come back. So that is how antifungals work. They're pretty effective, pretty fast, right? Just like a killer robot would be, but they don't finish the job. Okay, so now let's talk about our second treatment option, which is douching or boric acid. What douching and boric acid do? So boric acid is a cockroach poison. So the way that boric acid kills cockroaches is when you feed this to cockroaches, it makes their stomachs explode, and then the boric acid comes out again, and then other cockroaches come and eat like the dead cockroach stomach juice. Their stomachs explode as well, and then other cockroaches come and eat those, and then their stomachs explode as well. So boric acid is just super toxic. Think about this, right? Nuclear bombs don't even kill cockroaches, yet boric acid is able to kill them. So pretty powerful stuff. Douching, similarly, you're just taking a whole bunch of toxic, poisonous chemicals, throwing them up in there, cleansing everything out. So in this case, right, what is happening is just everything, all the yeast that was living in here, all of the Lactobacilli, everything is just dead. It's just completely erased, and you have a blank slate now, right? So the thing is when you have a totally blank slate again, what comes back? Well, what comes back is just whatever happens to be the first microorganism. It could be one of these, it could be one of these things. Whichever is the first to come back in here takes over the whole vaginal canal then. So this douching in boric acid, it ends up being what you would expect to see, and what ends up happening in reality is that it works super fast, but you're gonna get recurrence, right? It works super fast, and then a few days later, a few weeks later, because you just have all this empty space, whatever comes back, like once you stop using it, whatever comes back again, and it comes back with a vengeance. That's the second issue, or that's the second option. All right, option 3, NeuEve. I'm gonna show you guys how we handle this issue. A healthy vagina has a lot of lactobacilli, which protects the vagina from other bad things coming in. We talked about how antifungals kill all the yeast, but because of how they target it, they're not able to kill all of the yeast because some will always survive. Whereas with boric acid douching, it just kills everything, all the good guys and the bad guys. So here's our strategy, okay? We have 2 approaches. We have the environmental approach as well as selective feeding. We also introduce good lactobacilli. So here's how I want you to imagine this. Imagine you are back in World War II and you're the American military, and your job is to liberate France from the bad guys who were occupying France. I'm not going to say the soldiers of German descent who were occupying France. How would you get rid of these guys, right? You're the US Army or US military, and your job is to figure out, how do we liberate France? If you were trying to do that with our strategy, right? If you were trying to liberate France, right? What you would do is you would bomb the enemies, try to target, you want to try to target bombing the enemies, right? You're not just bombing everyone, but you want to target bomb the enemies specifically. And the way we do that environmentally, we use a combination of antifungal botanicals and very high concentration, right? So in that robot analogy, right, we would use many different robots that attack each different botanical ingredient that is antifungal with a very different mechanism. It kills funguses from different directions, and so they're overlapping, right? So we're targeted, but also carpet bombing the enemies, right? That's step 1. Step 2, right? We have our French allies, right? So we need to support the resistance forces. So when in history, right, what we were doing is we were figuring out where the pockets of French resistance were. We were giving them food, supplies, ammunition, right? We're doing everything we can to back them up, to back up the local population in order to help fight the enemies. In our case, with NeuEve, what we're doing is we're providing a bunch of, they're called resistant starches or prebiotics, right? In our case, we're using prebiotics to feed lactobacilli, and the prebiotics we use are things that only lactobacilli can eat, right? They're nutrients that are not available to yeast or bad bacteria. So in this example, right, if we were trying to liberate France, we would give them lots of French foods. We give them snails, we give them frogs, we give them French bread and croissants and all that, right? Like we just all the French food that the enemies can't eat, right? The occupying forces they're not really big fans of frogs and snails, so that's what we're gonna feed. That's what we're gonna just inundate the whole country with tons of frogs and snails. Finally, right, we gotta introduce the good bacteria back. So that's very similar to the invasion of the beach at Normandy, right, where we just land all of our good soldiers, good troops on the beaches and push them forward. That's the approach that we take, and when you combine all 3 of these approaches, what ends up happening is that the yeast infection doesn't come back because because you've established, like once this is all done, you end up establishing what the state was like with a healthy vagina. You end up with a very high lactobacilli, which leads to very high acidity, which leads to high lactobacilli, which leads to high acidity, which leads to like high lactobacilli, and which keeps out all of the bad yeasts. So yeah, hopefully this is helpful. One more thing we do is we also attack the yeast reservoirs. So what that means is this. If you are liberating France, and over here is the country that invaded France. We don't just bomb this area, we bomb over here too, right? And the way that works for vaginal yeast infections is a lot of times yeast can live in your gut. Yeast can live throughout your digestive tract, your large intestine, your small intestine. So our program, what we do is we have a vaginal suppository called Yeast Clear. Okay, this is our suppository that contains a high amounts of antifungal botanicals. It contains prebiotics. We have a supplement called Yeast Reset. Okay, this is a supplement that you take orally. You take it orally, and then it contains high amounts of antifungal botanicals that will help cleanse your gut, right? This is anti-gut yeast, right? This is anti-vaginal yeast. Finally, we have our vaginal probiotic. So the vaginal probiotic you insert vaginally. After you finish this and attacking the yeast reservoirs with Yeast Clear Yeast Reset, you insert the vaginal probiotic, and the vaginal probiotic contains 5 strains of carefully selected lactobacilli that help reintroduce the good bacteria that will help stabilize everything back to normal again. So the Yeast Clear, with this, it's a 3-day program. I use this every single day for 3 days. Okay, so the way this works is if you have a first-time yeast infection, you get 1 pack of Yeast Clear, and you use it 3 days in a row. So day 1, day 2, day 3. Use it 3 days in a row, and this should be enough. If this is your second, third infection, you can use 2 packs of Yeast Clear plus Yeast Reset. These are the supplements plus the vaginal probiotics. Okay, and then you use this one 6 days in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Use this 6 days in a row. Take the Yeast Reset to kill any yeast in your gut reservoir, and then introduce your vaginal probiotic, and then just keep on using the vaginal probiotic every single day. Well, you take it orally here for the first 6 days, and then vaginally afterwards. If it is the case that you have super recurrent yeast infection, you've had it 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 10 times, just everything, you've tried everything, then all you gotta do is you gotta use 3 packs of Yeast Clear, as well as Yeast Reset, as well as the vaginal probiotics, and you use it 9 days in a row. This is 9 days in a row, and then introduce your probiotics after day 9 vaginally. Take your probiotics orally before then, and then use Yeast Reset. This is you. I want you to know that hope is here. We're here for you. This plan will work. We actually have a 100% money back guarantee for anyone who uses 3 packs of it. I believe that we have like a 95% success rate with all of our customers so far. So if you buy 3 packs of this, you use it, doesn't work, we'll give you all your money back. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I hope this is helpful. If this is happening to someone that you know and love and care about, please send it to them. If it's happening to you, hope is on the way. Thanks so much for listening to my talk.